This record is the property of the Realmean Diplomatic Office, approved for public viewing for the current affairs of the New World as of the date 8th of Haley, 1437 ABA. As you might know by now, Albion is a complex continent. With the existence of other races, cultures, religions, it makes the geopolitical scene of Albion daunting and complex. But in this guide, we shall explore political alliances, nations, borders of these nations, including contemporary history and relations. Albion is divided into two main spheres of influence, the colonies and the Ardell. The colonies are the collection of states and possessions of the Old World powers or formed from outside forces, the largest of these being the Realmean sphere, controlling the vast majority of the northern colonies, Cantera and Heranon being the biggest colonial holdings in the New World. Other empires exist, of course. The Empire of Westphar controls the majority of the Middle Albion coastline. They fight against green-skinned tribes and clans from the jungles of the interior. The empire is led by Kaiser Gustavri I of House Blackhearts, the family previously known as the Blackhearts prior to their unification wars. The Vinic Merchant Republics is a union of merchant families and city-states hell-bent on controlling the trade of goods and passageways, getting rich in the process. Their approach to colonialism is less direct and more subtle. In the Canoparian Sea, they used soft power to slowly take control of many islands that existed there. Using their superior weaponry and backdoor deals, several wars and annexations later, they managed to take control over all of the Canoparian Sea and the islands within it, getting rich off of the trade of gold and slaves from Myera, as well as forming the CCC, the Canoparian Trade Company. Then there were the Solvage. Initially they attempted to set up colonies in southern Heranon, but later abandoned it. They set up colonies, however, in South Albion, in the region of Rusbania and New Picardassi. The kingdom of Solvans was headed by House Durain, under the crown of King Luniom VII. And then there was the slave state of Myera. From the lands of Salu, a wealthy slave merchant by the name of Amra Imbadi came to the New World in hopes of exploiting the land and expanding his business, hearing of the many tribes of the arm of Auron. He set up shop, and with the help of mercenaries he conquered a large territory where he proceeded to introduce slavery into the New World, selling them off to Svinnic merchants, Salu slave owners, and exploiting them into the other parts of the world, expanding the Salu slave trade deep into the New World. The Ardell are the native regions of Albion. These nations are obviously far more established and older than many of the Old World nations. Arcadia believes itself to be more than 3,000 years old. The empire spans a large landmass, and by far the largest Ardellician empire in Albion. They own two of the largest cities on the continent and the most religiously significant, Arnakadir and Eleanor. They have a negative view on Realmeon and the other colonial powers, seeing them as backward savages only taking land and ruining civilization. The current ruler of Arcadia as of the year 1437 is Lord Regent Eros Iranal, leading on the behalf of the heir of the throne, Thay II the Maranduale. He managed to maintain peace with the colonial powers for over 40 years, but barely anything is actually known about the current state of things in Arcadia due to the Menhardith line. The Kingdom of the Theria is the second most powerful Ardellician nation in Albion, a proud nation of cavalry and chivalry. They're the most conservative in their ways of thinking and warfare. They're allies to Arcadia and one of the first and most determined to fight against colonial powers. Their wealth and aristocratic power makes them one of the most influential nations near the Canoparian Sea. Kaelar is a kingdom east of Letheria, a minor power and pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but the kingdom is unique in that it's a Sayer kingdom with a large human population. For much of its history, it's existed alongside Sayer cultures in the Canoparian, but after the Vinic takeover it became more closely aligned with Letheria and Arcadia. However, they are mostly neutral, especially after the Second Continental War. It became a buffer between the colonial powers and Letheria. Then there were the free tribes of Seken. In the arm of Auron, the Salu conquered and enslaved the natives, but not all were taken. In the periphery, there exists a semi-united alliance of tribes and clans that managed to escape or fortunate enough to avoid the Maiaran assault. These tribes lived free from slavery, leading to Maiara sending out expeditions to capture new slaves from these tribes, leading to the infamous Slavers' Wars of Auron. These tribes are few but deadly, participating in small-scale caravan raids to free slaves or pillage and loot from Maiaran settlements. For about 2 centuries, the Arm of Auron has been in the state of war since its start. The 15th century started with gunshots and fire, as the Second Continental War began from 1399 to 1406, 7 years of constant war, far larger than the First Continental War a century prior. The war ended with the signing of the Treaty of Vorce, 14th of Toul, 1406, leading to the creation of the Manhardeth Line, a line agreed upon by the Ardellisans and the Continental Powers. The Manhardeth Line is a border between the 2 parts of the New World, between the Ardellisans and the Colonial Powers. It is agreed that any conflict happening on one side of the line is not to be disturbed by the powers of the other side of the line. Trade is severely limited. It's not that it's forbidden, but it became a taboo for Ardellisan merchants to trade with the Colonial Powers. The Manhardeth Line also created artificial borders between the 2 worlds that were not present until this point, but the line was not only just a line. Entire regions became buffer zones because of this. The central frontier was created by the treaty as a buffer between Realmeon and Arcadia. It's a lawless territory. It's inhabited by a number of Ardellisan tribes who migrated from eastern Heranon after being displaced by the pioneer settlers. Not only these tribes, but also the Anak Confederacy, who are allied to these tribes, holding their territory inside of the central frontiers and fending off attacks from eastern settlers, who, speaking of, wish to expand the crown republics deep into the mainland, believing it's a God-given right to do so, a manifest destiny, if you will. The conflict between the tribes and independent settlers often spilled over to both Arcadia and Realmeon, leading to the frontier borders becoming fortified. But it did not stop new settlers from tribes from entering into the region due to the lawless nature of the frontiers. Banditry, crime, black markets, and more thrived in these lands, making it one of the most dangerous regions in Albion to date. Central Frontier is also the main region where the Sword's Inquisition and the Matron's Hand clash the most. The Witch is sent to protect these tribes in the Central Frontier and raid settlements of the colonists, while the Sword's Inquisition uses this as an opportunity to shave off the numbers of witches in the region, as well as protecting the same settlements from witch incursions. Realmeon has become the dominant superpower of the continent, with it holding the main power in the north, holding Kentera and Eastern Heranon. The power is counterbalanced by the Imperial Monarchy of Arcadia, a native empire west of the Manhardeth Line. The 2 superpowers hold spheres of influences and alliances directly and indirectly at odds with each other. In the beginning of the period, since the end of the Second Continental War, as known as the Great Standoff, where both empires do not directly go against each other, but use their proxies to fight instead. Before we end this, we must pay respects to the victims of what started the Second Continental War. Roseville started out as a town in the southern bank of the Crystal Straits, settled by Realmeon as a military outpost. However, a city formed around the outpost, inhabited by Aethernian elves, who fled from Arcadia avoiding religious persecution. They built a prosperous community around the fort, naming it Roseville after the field of red roses close to the city. In 1399 ABA, however, in the Dame was foul, the witches brought an end to the harmony. They came into the city unprovoked, proceeded to massacre everyone. The city's garrison was undersupplied and low on manpower that night. They stood no chance. Only a single inquisitor was present that night, Yugon Varga. He himself killed 6 of them, but fell in battle. The city was burned to the ground. Out of 300,000 that lived in the city, only 300 survived. It was estimated that about 70 witches were responsible for this. Most of them, if not all, were elders. If only dozens were able to cause such destruction, then who knows what thousands can do. Even today, not a single statement from the Imperial Court of Arcadia nor the matron's hand ever addressed this atrocity. And when they did, they only denied it. This massacre gave the Order of the Swords Inquisition a new importance. They were the only force truly capable of taking care and killing off the witches. Their funding was tripled, their numbers swelled, more castles were built, and before it was a single inquisitor per city, now it's on average 5. Magic was outright banned in the colonies, and other penalties became more severe. And the only remaining Aulanae elves in Cantera? Well, they no longer exist.